إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وسندنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وداعينا ومرشدنا وحبيب ربنا محمدًا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, the verses that I just recited are from Surah Al Imran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And amongst you there should be a group of people, there should be a portion of you amongst you, يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. They should always continuously call toward good. وَيَنْهَوْنَ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They should enjoin that which is good. They should command that which is good. They should encourage that which is good. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And they should forbid and encourage others to stop doing that which is wrong. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. And indeed, these people are the ones who are the most successful. Today, I want to take this ayah and apply it, and a majority of the Muslim scholars in the world today, they use this ayah to apply as when we vote, this is the mindset that we use. These are the guidance that we use from the Quran when we vote, right? When we have to choose between two things, when we have to make a decision, we have to choose between two candidates. What mindset do we go in? Do we choose the one who's the more eloquent speaker? Do we choose the one who's the more who's more well dressed? What basis do we make our decision on? What basis do we make our decision on? And the Quran tells us when you make your decision between choosing your leaders, there are certain guidelines that you must follow. And today I will go over three of them. Three of the guidelines that the Sharia tells us, right? But before I go into this, I want to tell you all today is actually National Registration Voter Day, right? So today actually throughout the country in many different churches, there are voter registration drives where they're encouraging people to vote. We're not doing one in our masjid, alhamdulillah. We've done a couple, during their Eid time and in Ramadan. But nonetheless, today is Voter Registration Day. And so there is a website called mymuslimvote.com, and they're actually registering people. So if you have not registered to vote and you want to vote, please do so online, mymuslimvote.com, right? mymuslimvote.com. And so today, many imams throughout America are going to be talking about the importance of voting. I want to take, something, I don't want to talk about the importance of voting, rather I want to talk about when we vote, what guidelines do we use when we are voting? What guidelines do we use when we are voting? And so the Quran tells us that there are three main things. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. These are the three major guidelines that we use when when we have to decide who should we vote for. And this is at every level, right? Whether you're doing it at the local level or at the highest level, or at the primary level, right? Whatever level it is of voting, these are the decisions that we make. One person we choose the one who has the best, يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, who calls to the most good. And subhanAllah, when we look at the Quran, there are some verses of the Quran are very specific, and some verses are very vague, right? Some verses are very specific. When we talk about the way of prayer is specific. The Prophet ﷺ told us exactly how to pray. But when it comes to these type of verses, these are very vague, right? What is the definition of good? يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. What does it mean to call toward good, right? This is something that each person has to go into his heart and look at it himself, right? He needs to go and decide for themselves which one is calling me toward good. They have to use their own brain. We have to be creative, right? We have to unleash our creativity when it comes to understanding what is good. Good changes in every era. Right? What was good 100 years ago may not be good now, right? What's going to be good 100 years from now may not be good today either. What's good today it will not be good for society maybe later on. So good changes throughout. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left it vague. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. A candidate, a person who should be your leader should be one who calls toward good. His ideas are appealing to you, right? So when we base our decision, and this is common sense for us, right? We don't even need to have religious guidance. You don't choose a candidate who's the best looking or the youngest or the oldest or the most eloquent. You choose a candidate who's going to has the best policies. You choose a candidate who you think is going to give you and your society the best opportunity to succeed. Who's going to make the economy who's going to strengthen the economy. Who's going to make it more peaceful to live in the society. And so this is common sense, right? يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. We choose a candidate, number one, who calls toward good, the one who has better policies. And each of us here, we have different mindsets, right? Some of us, we want large taxes, right? We're poor, we want the rich to pay more taxes, right? Some of us are rich, we want less taxes. Whatever you think is good, you use your mind and you support the person who you think is calling toward good for you. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, right? So the first criteria, or this is actually all one criteria, but the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is that we should call toward good, right? The leader should call toward good. Number two is he should command that which is good. He should enjoin good and he should forbid evil. And this is the second thing. Our scholars tell us that when you vote for a leader, you vote for the one who has the best benefit. Right? Not only are their policies good, but they will also be good for government. Right? There are some people who, even though they have amazing policies and excellent policies, but they will not be beneficial for government. They're not fit to rule, so to speak. Right? In that case, we're told that you should vote for the one who's fit to rule, who not only has the good policies, but he can actually put them in place and he can actually lead people. He has the quality of leading people. And the third thing, وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and he forbids people from doing evil. Right? And this actually applies to us as well. Right? It is our responsibility, by choosing the right candidate, we are also acting upon this ayah. We are becoming those, if we choose a wrong candidate, if we choose a candidate who is harmful for us, we are calling toward evil. But when we choose a candidate who is good for us, we are actually calling toward good. When we're encouraging people to stay away from staying away from evil. So choosing the right candidate in your mind is essential, in voting. And not only that, we have religious guidance for that, right? And the Prophet ﷺ told us, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, fa in lam yastati' fa bilisanihi, fa in lam yastati' fa biqalbihi, wa dhalika ad'afu al-iman." This is the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you see something bad going on, you see evil in front of you, right? You have to stop it. The Prophet ﷺ said, you stop that evil with your hands. You go and you tell that person, you should stop that evil. You should whatever effort you can do, you make that effort to stop it, right? If someone is doing evil, you make every effort you can. You work hard to stop that evil. If you have nothing to do, you have no way of stopping that evil, you should at least create awareness of it, right? The Prophet said, if you cannot stop it with your hands, you stop it with your tongue. You tell people about it. You create awareness of evil. And if you cannot stop it with your tongue, then you stop it with your heart, meaning that you dislike that action. And the Prophet said, when you dislike something and you're silent about it, and you don't make any effort for it, that means you have the lowest form of iman. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. When you see evil going on, and you don't make an active effort to stop it, you don't create awareness about it, you just only dislike it, right? Some people, unfortunately, this is our iman level, that we don't even dislike an action, right? We say, oh, to each their own, right? But rather, we are told that if an action is bad and it's evil and you see it in front of you, you make an effort to stop it. Or you create awareness to stop it, and if you can't do that, at least dislike it. And that disliking is the lowest level of iman. And so we need to make an effort to stop the worst candidate, or stop the most evil from implementing evil, right? So from the most evil being in place, we need to make an effort to make sure we need to do our part to make sure we stop evil from happening in our society. And so we are told, once again, our first biggest guideline is when we make a decision, we always follow three things. We make sure that person has good policies. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. It's calling toward good. Number two, يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They're encouraging, they can implement that good. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And they protect us. They forbid people from evil. They protect evil. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. The Quran says, these people who have these qualities, that they do these three things, these people will be successful. They are going to be, and this is talking about the ummah, right? It's talking about people who have iman and they do these things, they are successful. If we want to be successful, one of the qualities is we make sure we prevent evil from happening and we encourage good to happen, right? And I want to take the last part of this khutbah, inshallah, to talk about some of the misconceptions that I've been facing, over the last couple of weeks. I've had brothers come to me and say different things, like, oh, it's un-Islamic to vote, or if both candidates are evil, how are you going to vote for the lesser of the two evils, right? And so I want to just explain one thing really quickly. We are told, and by the way, just to let you know, right? If you look at Islamic history, I'm going on a tangent here. If you look at Islamic history, this is Muslims living in North America is the first time in history that Muslims have lived in a non-Muslim predominant area, right? Under the rule of non-Muslims. First time, right? So we have new fiqh, we have new rulings when it comes to learning how to live in a minority. It's called fiqh al-aqalliyat. There's a new science being developed by scholars called fiqh al-aqalliyat, the science of living as a minority in a country in a non-Muslim country. Right? This is we have sciences, we have rulings developed for this, right? But this is the first time, and so we have guidelines that tell us how do we live in this minority? And so, these type of issues, like how do you choose the lesser of two evils? These are not mentioned in the Quran. They're not mentioned in the ahadith. But it's a very simple answer. I want to give this answer because people tell me, oh, you're going to choose the lesser of two evils. Or what if you choose a candidate and he turns out to be bad? Well, what if you marry someone and that woman or man turns out to be bad? What if you make a decision going between two schools and that decision comes out to be bad, right? This is why the Prophet told us, whenever you make a decision, you ask Allah for khair in it. You ask Allah to put khair in it, you ask Allah to put good in it. Every decision can go bad, right? Every decision that you make can go bad. In the year 2000, Muslims were the reason why George Bush became president. If you go back and study the election, there is such a large amount of Muslims in Florida, such a large amount of Muslims in Florida, that there was actually an awareness to go and endorse George Bush as a presidential candidate. We know how that turned out, right? We made a mistake and we learned from that mistake, inshallah, this time. But nonetheless, Muslims were the main reason why George Bush became George Bush became president, was because the Muslims were the ones who voted for him. They endorsed him, and the amount of Muslims who voted in Florida was the reason why George Bush won that state. And it was one of the reasons why he became president. So our vote actually means something. It's not like our vote means nothing. We think to ourselves, oh, my vote is one vote, what am I going to do? Right? Like, how is my vote going to make a difference? No, your vote means something, right? Every politician, they have people working for them who run numbers for them, run polls for them, right? They're polling numbers. And what do? They say, okay, these are the voters, these people are going to vote, let's go and appeal to these voters, right? Candidates will appeal to the African American community, to so-and-so minority, but they will never appeal to Muslim minority, because they know that when it comes to election time, we sit in our house and we don't do anything. We don't make a decision, right? And so what happens? They don't appeal to us. When we start going out in polls, the first people that are going to notice are going to be politicians themselves, because they run the numbers. They see that so many Muslim voters are coming out to the polls. They see that such a large amount are making a difference in the election. Every single vote matters. We may think to ourselves, yeah, it may not matter. We may think that, oh, we're choosing the lesser of two evils, right? But we're not choosing the lesser of two evils. We make an informed decision, and we do it because it is our responsibility, right? Some scholars say that not voting is un-Islamic. Why? Because you are not doing your duty to prevent evil. You are not doing your duty to make sure the best person and good in this society happens if you do not do your diligence for that. What is our effort for that? We go out to the polls, right? We know that October 14th, next Friday, is the last day you can register. So if you haven't registered for vote, you have till next Friday. And then we know November 8th is the election day. So make sure you take time out and you vote, right? And the last objection people make is that when you're voting, you're basically saying that this person rules over you instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? When the government rules over you, and then basically you're holding the government at the same pedestal as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the answer to this is that the government, 99% of the government, doesn't deal with divine law. It doesn't deal with divine law. In fact, our government gives us the right to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freely, right, in our country. But 99% of government is about, education, funding education, foreign policy, these type of things. Nothing to do with divine law. In fact, it's not a contradiction of divine law. It's not a contradiction of divine law. Rather, it supports divine law, right? The values may go against, Islamic, the values may go against divine law, but nonetheless, it's not contradicting divine law. And so these are some objections people have raised, and I wanted to, clear them. We don't choose the lesser of two evils. We make a decision, and if it turns out to be bad, it turns out to be bad. But we ask Allah, we do istikhara, we ask Allah, and we learn from that decision, right? We learn maybe 16 years from now, we're going to learn from the decision that we made, to endorse, George Bush. And like I said, Muslims were the reason, one of the main reasons why he won Florida. Even in Michigan, right? There is such a large amount of Muslim voters in Michigan. At the local level, every single politician goes to masajid, right? Here in states like New York, etc., we don't have a large Muslim population. But in Michigan, there is such a large Muslim population. There is a city in Michigan called Dearborn, which is, over like 70% Muslim, right? And their stop signs are in Arabic, right? Because why? The city is populated with so many Muslims. They have the biggest masjid, the most expensive masjid in America, right? If you go online, you can look at it. But politicians come there and make sure they get the votes of the Muslims because their vote matters. It's a swing state, and I mean, their vote can swing, the result of an election. And so my humble opinion, make sure we do our part. This is the lowest of our iman, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you see evil and you don't make an effort to stop it, or you don't create awareness about it, and you only dislike it, that is the lowest level of your iman. We need to make sure we don't have the lowest level, we settle for the highest level. We need to do our part to make sure we protect ourselves from evil, we protect ourselves from harm. And we are always, and the last thing that I want to mention is that the scholars tell us that when we make a decision for that person, or when we're making a decision between two candidates, we vote for that person whose candidacy leads to the benefit of the overall majority, not the minority. Right? Overall majority, not the minority. This is a usul in Sharia called dar'ul mafasid awla min jalb al manafi'. Right? That removal of harm is more important than the benefit of a few. Right? As long as the majority benefits, even if it's at the expense of the minority, that person should be considered over the one in which the majority is suffers at the expense of the majority suffers, and the minority it benefits the minority. And so this is the last usul that the scholars tell us about making a decision, that when you make a decision, you choose the one that benefits majority and not the minority. You don't choose the one who only benefits the minority, is only helping the minority, and overall is harming the majority. And so these are some things that I wanted to mention. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those that when we vote, we make an informed decision. We don't just go with the rhetoric, or we don't just go with what we hear or what we see, but rather we make a decision. We do some research about our candidates, what policies they have, what good are they calling toward, what bad are they calling to, and then after that we make our decision. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those whose vote can actually make a difference. Make us amongst those who are able to learn how to live in this system. Make us amongst those who and make Muslims amongst those whose minority is such that it becomes a swing of in the result of elections. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من صلى علي واحدة صلى الله عليه بها عشرة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واعتدلوا. Please straighten the rows. Make sure your heels are on the line. Please fill in the gap. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.